Now, if you didn't get the memo, diesel taxis are no longer allowed in London. They are slowly being phased out. There is no 100% electric taxi available in London. Or is there? This is the Clipper cab. I don't know what you're thinking. Tom, that looks like a TX4. Well, no, it's actually a converted TX4. This thing is fully electric. And better still is that it runs with a Nissan Leaf motor, meaning that you've got the reliability of a brand like Nissan, but in the classic, iconic Hackney carriage. Let's have a little look. This is my first go. I'm sort of excited. Well, I am excited. Now, as a caveat before we begin, Clipper Cab are actually reimbursing me for producing this video on behalf of them. They've given me some points. I've had a good conversation with them this morning, but it's a taxi. What's not for me to like? So I am going to be brutally honest with some of the stuff that I do come up with in this video. I don't know quite what to expect. There's a handbrake. We turn that. Got a battery indicator. We go. So I've turned the key. I think it's now started. You still have to turn the key, right? Put that to drive. We're away. We're away. Oh, I love being back in this little cab. Here we go. Here we go. Steering is noticeably heavier, but I am on cobbled paving. Maybe the tyres are a little bit flat. This is great. You know what I miss instantly, actually? Now I'm here, because I've driven in my TXE to get here, and now I'm on the road. I've got so much better visibility. I feel like I'm here. Like that sounds stupid, but I'm actually here. Nice, silent. I'm not vibrating. Remember my old TX4 video, what I miss about a TX4? It was almost like I wanted to turn the noise of the engine down. It was too much. I'll tell you what's nice as well, the engine braking on it as well, actually. But this has got quite a nice... It's like a Scalextric car, it's brilliant. It's the little, nice, fun compactness of a TX4, but with the zippiness and the funness of electric. Feels like I'm driving a Dodgem.
Well, we wanted to get into electric vehicles, and we wanted to prove that retrofitting and converting existing vehicles to electric was viable commercially and at scale. And the taxis seemed the obvious candidate because they do many miles, they're perfect to be electric vehicles. They were polluting London quite a lot.
When I used to go to work in a TX4, if you've ever watched Only Fools and Horses, it's like when they started up the three-wheeler van, it was like, will it start, will it start? These things are effectively bulletproof, right? The outside and that, they're amazing. The only thing that was kind of annoying about it was possibly how unreliable the engine was. If an engine started developing a noise, or if you go turn the key and it takes a little bit longer to start than it should. This, it's great. The indestructibility of a TX4 combined with the reliability of electric motor.
Frankly, the options for taxi drivers to go to clean vehicles just weren't very good. So we thought we could do better. We want to be doing conversions of the diesel taxi cabs at scale to get many of them up and running on the roads. And then we want to move on to a different vehicle type. So take the technology that we've developed and use that to work on the retrofit system for the next vehicle type to do at scale.
That's great. It's the that noise. Like, I don't know if that's something, because electric vehicles now, or they're supposed to have quite an audible noise, so people at traffic lights can hear that you're coming. The cab interior, the cab feel is exactly the same as when I used to drive my 2012 TX4. But I find it remarkable that just because they've changed that noisy, rattly diesel engine for an electric motor, it feels so much more modern. I've got a lady hailing me down, look. No, I'm sorry, love, it's not licensed by TfL yet, I'm afraid. Whee! Just cruising over Waterloo Bridge in my electric TX4. And the great thing is I'm just mingling in. Like, I've not got some weird, fancy, gimmicky looking vehicle that's like, oh, look at me, I'm electric. It's the iconic, classic taxi shape, which is what you need in a Hackney carriage. I'm really impressed with the drive. I'm going to pull up and we're going to look at some of the other features that this cab has got. Clipper Cab haven't actually done any changes to the original interior of these cabs. These were brilliant. There's no need to touch the interior. You've still got disabled accessibility, you've still got the big grab handles, all the features that people love about the TX4s. One of my favourites was the super comfortable seats in the back, the ones that kind of almost hug you, the armrest, you know, the real cosy sort of living room experience that you got in the back of a TX4. All of that remains the same. In fact, the only noticeable differences to the interior is up front in the driver's portion. So you get a slightly different instrument cluster in the dashboard. You get a little LCD display which tells you a little bit about how the cab is running, battery life, etc. And of course they've changed the gear shifter. So it's now this little modern twist thing which goes obviously from neutral drive to reverse. Really neat, unobtrusive in the front. And it then means you get all the classic things that we love about a TX4. So things like physical buttons for the heating controls and air conditioning. And all those interior elements remain the same. So it's familiar for drivers who've had this cab for quite some time, but also they're those nice physical tactile buttons.
We've been pretty pleased with the way the technology's worked out and getting them up and working as road legal vehicles and the way they perform on the streets of London. We're very pleased with that. We've got them approved by the DVSA. Each one has is individually inspected and gets an individual vehicle approval certificate. And we've had them licensed in cities like Oxford, where we've got 2 up and running, and other cities are considering our proposals to get them licensed and to adjust the age limits to make it viable for drivers. Getting approval by the DVSA and getting an IVA for these vehicles was a big step for us. It's endorsement by you know, a government body, which is very important for the driver, but also critical for passengers and passenger safety. These are, after all, you know, public vehicles.
I tell you what I keep on forgetting to do is to put the bloody key in. I'm so used to keyless, so you either leave the key in your pocket or you chuck it down there in the middle, but yeah, still got original key. It just starts as normal like before. You have an ignition effectively, so you turn it so you can still get your radio and all the cigarette lighters and stuff. You still get power from that initial twist of the ignition. Now if I go to turn it over as though I'm starting the cab, you'll hear it, I think possibly the power steering or something starting up. Hear that? Sounds like a hydraulic lift or something. But anyway, it's gone. It's started. Just turn it into drive and we are good to go. Oh, I'm still my handbrake on. I don't have to select a regen mode like you do in the TXE. As soon as you get a TXE, by default, there's no regen on it. Why would you not want regen braking? Saves brake pads. I do miss that suspension actually. TXE, you've got to be pretty much in a straight line whenever you go over speed bumps, because what happens is the body kind of twists. Yeah, the suspension on this was a little bit bouncy. If you're going over speed bumps and things, you're not, you don't have to get it perfectly straight. It could then sort of go across speed bumps on the angle, because invariably you're not always going to be dead straight approaching a speed bump. So we've looked at the interior and pretty much nothing has changed. It's definitely quicker at pulling away than what a TX4 is, definitely. What's the horn like? The old classic. Ready? That's the horn I want on my TXE, because it's so loud, the one on the TXE. This is the little friendly, I'm a taxi driver. Let's look under the bonnet and in the boot. What space do we get? What is this? There. Ta-da! Motors and batteries and stuff. So under here is battery, and then underneath that is a Nissan Leaf motor. The charging bits are from a Tesla, I believe. Apparently that's quite popular in conversions. They use Nissan parts and Tesla parts. Anything brightly orange is high voltage. This is a disconnect port, so all the fire services have been trained. They know that most electric vehicles have something like this to do something to do with electricity. All the moving parts, all the, you know, drive shaft and, you know, brake pads, whatever, all your service stuff, less servicing actually, I guess, because there's no oil to go into the engine, no engine to service, all remains the same. They've not touched that. All they've done is just rip the engine out and put a new motor in, effectively. So you can take us to a normal cab garage, or normal garage as far as we're concerned. It doesn't even weigh that much more than the original TX4, meaning that from a garage point of view, they've not got to invest in new jacks or new servicing equipment to get this lifted up on a 4-poster.
We are looking for investors to come on board and help us ramp up production, specifically to build up the first fleet of 10 cabs, to fund the regulatory approval in London, and to ramp up production to give us the capability to produce hundreds a year. If you are interested, then go onto our website and register interest either as a driver or as an investor. So the website is clipper.cab.
So in terms of charging, just here on the front, you've got your normal Type 2 connector. So this is if you have a granny cable, so you can charge from like a point on the street or from home charging. And then this one, of course, is CHAdeMO. But as I'm sure many of you may know, that you have CHAdeMO and CCS type ports. With more and more things going CCS, that will then be an option to have that in this cab. Most charging infrastructures will support both, and CHAdeMO is generally available on pretty much every fast charge point in London. Now, one of the things I miss about this TX4 is the fact that you had quite good storage in the boot. So let's have a little looky. What have we got in the boot? Sadly, a lot more batteries. There's not really any storage space in the back here. That is just battery. But, you know, talking range, storage, what's more important? So you might be wondering then, if there's no spare wheel in the boot, where might that be? Well, that's actually underneath the cab. So now let's talk about actual numbers. What kind of mileage can we get? How much does it cost, etc, etc. So this has got a 40 kilowatt Nissan battery, Nissan Leaf motor. In their drive cycles, they found that exclusively motorway usage gets about 100 miles. And in city modes, because obviously when you pull up at a set of traffic, there's not much going on with the motor, you're getting 120 to 130 miles. What about the cost though? How much does this cab cost? Clipper currently have a price of £39,000 plus VAT. Now these numbers are all subjective, so they might change in the future. This is kind of just the information they tell me at the moment in current day standards. But you've got to look beyond that number for a couple of things. So firstly, there is no other electric taxi on the market. On a TXE, my cab was about 69,000. I think they're now about £72,000. So considerably cheaper there. Also, you've got to look at other councils' schemes for electric. So Birmingham, somewhere that has provisionally licensed these cabs, will actually give drivers £10,000 to go towards an electric vehicle. So all of a sudden that brings that cab cost down to £29,000 plus VAT. And Clipper Cab, if you give them your TX4 for conversion, they'll give you up to £6,000 for that conversion. So all of a sudden you're talking about £23,000 plus VAT. You know, a bill of under £30,000 and you've got an electric taxi, which potentially should be future-proofed. The main issue and stipulation here, age limits. Now, when Clipper Cab did approach me, my first kind of response was, well, is it licensed in London? You know, why should I bother? And this is pretty much the wrong approach to have. They've already got pre-approval in Edinburgh. In fact, there's one of their vehicles has gone up to Edinburgh today, and at the time of shooting this video is going up there for an official inspection. Oxford, as a licensing authority, have been very bold, and they've actually removed age limits from their taxis. Because at the end of the day, if a taxi has its MOT and is roadworthy, why should it have any age limits or restrictions to it? There is actually 2 of these vehicles licensed in Oxford. Birmingham have allowed this cab, but of course there's still some age limits there as well. And many other authorities who are keen in considering it. In fact, by the time this video has gone out, there might be more who have jumped onto this cab. How it has historically worked in London is that when these diesel cabs come to the end of their life, they get sold off to other parts of the country. Because there's more value in other parts of the country than there is here in London, because they're finished in London. The issue is that diesels are a bit of a no-no now. So when they finish in London, they're kind of finished altogether. And it seems such a waste that these get chucked in the bin. So even if they can't be used in London, if other licensing authorities are after these TX4s specifically, then it then means that the fleets in London can sell them to other licensing areas in the UK, which then in turn means more revenue for fleet owners here in London, and then they can put that into newer stock of cabs. But of course the dream scenario would be for TfL to pick up this conversion, because let's face it, we know that the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is very pro clean air. It's kind of his main agenda. At the end of the day, he's got a podcast specifically about clean air. We've already got a TX4 that's already been made. So you haven't got any emissions coming from brand new vehicle manufacturer. You've got a Nissan Leaf electric motor. So there's no range extenders or anything. That is 100% electric, and that takes the pollution out of the city centres. And of course, Clipper Cab are based right here in London. They're about a mile and a bit that way in Camberwell. So they haven't even got to ship the cab here or get any bits manufactured overseas. It's all done in-house. I've always found the age limit thing a little bit crazy, because this cab could be kept in a garage for 15 years. be in the most spectacular of condition. You could take it to the MOT centre, which it has to go to twice a year in London, and they could say, you know what, that is a stellar example of a cab. We have never seen one cleaner. But TfL could say, no, sorry, it's got to come off the road. Why? Because it's 15 years old. Not because there's anything wrong with it structurally or mechanically. 15 years, it's got to come off the road. Currently, as it stands, the last diesel cab was 2017. So they're already 5 years old. They've only got a maximum of 12 years, I believe. I could be wrong here because I think Euro 6 numbers are slightly different. 12 years minus 5 talks 7 years. So you've got 7 years if you convert it in London. That could be good because the savings could warrant the cost that you have to pay up front for it. Bristol, I believe, are giving £4,000 for drivers who convert to electric. Let's not forget, TfL were actually actively paying money to drivers to go off and get rid of their TX4s. TfL didn't even take the TX4s. They just said, look, we're just going to put your number plate, your cab on our list of vehicles that can't be licensed in London. That was that. The driver got a £10,000 check for doing that. Then they could then go and sell it elsewhere. Could I live with this cab? Mileage, maybe. But for a lot of drivers who live quite close to London, this could work perfectly. Pricing wise, what, 39,000 plus VAT? Well, it all comes down to how much time you have on it. £48,000 for a cab that you could potentially have 7 years of life on? Yes. If you've already got a TX4, that's great because obviously you can add that into the conversion so you can get up to £6,000 off. I think it's, at the end of the day, it's all about having options. In the same way that a lot of drivers went for the Nissan Dynamo because it's £10,000 less than that cab in front, the LEVC TXE. Whereas some drivers would be like, you know what, I'd happily pay 10 grand more because I like the LEVC, it's more of a comfort luxury vehicle. Whereas the Dynamo, it's a bit smaller, hasn't got the iconic taxi shape, doesn't take 6 people, but it's all about option. I guess as well, there's something about spending about over 30 grand on something for something that is kind of old. I know that the price is competitive. I know that the vehicle is iconic and it's far cheaper than, you know, obviously going to go get a brand new TXE. It just still feels like a lot of money to pay, but at the end of the day, this is electric. So that and the conversion to go into it and the fact that there's a company that's got to put their name on it and kind of look after it, maybe it's not so bad after all. We know that the TX4 is a reliable base, and Nissan Leaf motor is incredibly reliable because it's one of the electric vehicles that's done the most mileage out of any production electric vehicle. We've got to go electric anyway. Aside from manufacturing a brand new taxi, which no startup will ever be able to achieve for money that's more competitive than an LEVC, because it's just not viable. This cab in its current state, if I was to point out some bad things, actual braking is quite spongy. I mean, it's classic TX4 braking, which is fine if I was solely relying upon that brake pedal. But as this has got regenerative braking, I'm already sort of slowly cruising to a stop. I want that brake pedal, that final last bit, to do a bit more. The acceleration isn't quite as good as the TXE, but once you are up to speed, then yeah, the acceleration from then on is pretty good. Room, you know, it needs more room. There's not enough boot space. There's no boot space. As you need the luggage area for luggage, there needs to be some accommodation for room, for putting something, for putting a lunchbox or whatever. If you eat out, then it's not really an issue. You still got your cup holder. What more do you want? That background noise, that audible, is kind of annoying. In London, it's a no-brainer. Like, everyone's used to this shape in London. Like, when I drove down the road in this, it feels so different to me. It feels so different. But no one's looking at me like, oh, look at that cab, look at that electric cab going past. It's like, no, everyone's used to this shape, which means good things because it's not alien to people. People have tried hailing me down, even though my light's off, so it means it's a popular shape. It's tried and tested with electric, which is what London wants. The great thing about Clipper Cab is it's a small company, so some of the stuff does seem a bit crude, you know, the odd 3D printing here and there and stuff. But with investment, all those things can then be ironed out. So if you are interested in this cab and want to learn a bit more, do go to clipper.cab. I'll put the link in the description down below. And they are also entertaining offers from investors as well. Because this cab, I mean, it's a lot of work that goes into this. They're only a small team and they are based here in London. But as they were explaining with me today, just even the simple thing of getting the charging infrastructure right to ensure that you can go to any charge point in the land, and that when they plug it into this cab, that this cab then accepts it and goes, yep, you know what, that's fine. I didn't realise just, you know, it's not as simple as just plugging it in, that they have to do the handshake, that there's bits of software and coding that goes on behind the scenes. So if you are interested in investing in this cab and effectively the entire taxi trade across the UK, then yeah, do get in touch via their website.